guys, how are you doing?
Fine.
First of all, thank you for joining us. And for those who are watching us and still don't know you, let me do a little bit of introduction. So this is Maxime ULLENS and Anna from the Myanmar CG. Maxime ULLENS is a young enologist from Belgium that 10 years ago decided to move to Champagne to produce his own champagne, and was recognized in 2020 as the best enologist by the magazine Gal Millau, that is one of the most important critic of gastronomy in France. So guys, it's a pleasure to have with me and with Enjoy Wine. And please tell us a little bit about how you been from Belgium, decided to move to Champagne to produce your own champagne.
So it's as I told you, it's a long story, but if you want to do it short, it's first of all because I was working in architecture and renovation of old buildings, and I'm passionate about old stone. So I have decided to renovate some different place here in France, and was following a place here in Champagne, starting to renovate it. And in that place, they was known for producing wines and known for producing Meunier. And I really want to start again to produce there some Meunier. So we decided to quit nearly everything in Belgium and to even sell our apartment, our car and everything, and move here to start to produce our wine. But before producing our wine, we have to create the new domain. And so it's new creation of domain that started from scratch.
Okay, I guess it must be tough to build a new winery in Champagne, a region that has a lot of history, and most of the champagne houses come from long heritages and old families. So how did you feel that?
It's a question of generation here in Champagne. So it's most of the daughter or the son who succeed to the father producing wine. So we were, at the beginning, it was really a bit tough because people see us as a stranger, want to come here and producing the wine here.
Yeah.
They were also hearing us as new foreigners who arrived. So it was a little bit tough. And also the appellation is very protective. So the appellation start to be sure that there is no big investors or billionaires who arrive here in Champagne and try to produce new champagne for the market in their country or supermarket. So step by step, we have to prove that we want to produce, as I can say, like good champagne. By that, I mean traditional way of producing champagne. And as soon as they understand that we are restoring an old press, buying some old machinery, follow some courses, visiting some other producer, working in bio or asking for the study of the soil, they understand that we want to produce something great. So they really help us to make our wine now.
Okay, great. So I understand that they respect you as you respect the region, the tradition, and the way they have to work. So I think that's amazing. So another thing is really interesting from your winery is the way you have to work. I mean, you work with horses in the vineyard. You produce your own barrels from trees from your domain. How important is for you to work in biodynamic? I mean, in general, in a natural way. How do you reflect that on the winery and on the vineyards?
Well, there are a lot of things to say because, well, let's keep it into several categories. First, when it comes to the producing our proper barrels, the original idea lies in the fact that the oaks that are situated in our forest, they're situated very close to the vineyards that we work with. So for us, it was one of the very logical decisions, saying that if trees see the very same soil, the very same terroir as the vineyards do, it means that straight away it's a good match.
Yeah.
And it was a logical decision for us to try making our proper barrels. We're pretty lucky. We're situated in 5 minutes from the only barrel making company in the whole region. So, you know, it's kind of a good sign for us. So together with them, we could choose trees because this is a very particular selection, how the tree should be chosen. We do not cut trees which can still be there for several hundreds of years. You know, we still want to preserve this heritage and these beautiful trees. But when the selection is, we can decide what can be used for barrels, and then not only what can be used, but how these barrels should be. So in our case, we wanted, and again, one of the, I think it was one of the reasons why we're so attached to the Champagne history, even though we're not from the region. So I like to make barrels of a small size. So it's 205 liters. It's not really known, it's not really famous as a size, but in fact, it is the traditional champagne size. So 205. That's why all the barrels that we create from our trees, those are small barrels of 205 liters. Then indeed, when it comes to the work in the vineyards, we want to preserve, every natural form of life that exists already. And we want to stimulate the health of the vineyard. So work in biological way was, again, one of the most logical decisions to proceed. We already used, from the very beginning, we understand that we would never use chemicals, we would never use herbicides or pesticides. So certification was one of the steps that we decided to take. And working in biological way in the vineyards it's only better for you to work in the same way with biodynamical ways, because biodynamics and your approach and all the processes that you apply in the vineyard will stimulate the health and it will stimulate the strength of the vines. That's why your biological approach, biodynamical approach, can be a very good surplus to what you do.
Biodynamic is like a question of also, on my point of view, it's kind of stupid if people are working in bio and are not using biodynamic. Biodynamic is a question of helping you working properly in bio. But in biodynamic, there is two big different way of working. There is one using only the help of some flowers, of some plants, or some stuff that can help you for preventing the grapes from some disease. But there is also the most mystic part of it. And you have to choose between that. For giving you an example, we have decided to work, for example, during the harvest, we are harvesting if the weather is good. So we are harvesting by agronomy and not biodynamic. But we can use also the moon, saying that today the moon will be perfect for the harvest, but it's raining. So which one we have to choose? It's always a question of choosing the best way of working. The idea also behind that is that we were lucky and sad at some point because there is no influence from grandfather or father who work into the vineyards. So we can do once about that. And we decided to straight away working on some philosophy that we respect for us.
Okay, so I understand that you support the biodynamic theories, but you are not restricted about it. I mean, you are more like practical, respecting the environment, but not focused only to do what the book says, I mean.
Yeah, that's true. We are under certification, but we are going step by step to biodynamic. And it's going to be, we give us 6 years for making that process step by step and slowly. Also for not shocking the vineyards and not shocking the process of how we work, and because we still have to learn a lot of things. So yeah.
Okay. No, yes, I think it's really important. I mean, biologic vinifications and biodynamic winemaking, I think it's really important, but because it's not only a trend or not only a fashion, but also something that people is aware of, that we have to respect the environment and do not do something that will be damage for our soils. I mean,
next generation.
Talking about that, I think that you are like 10 years in Champagne, right? More or less.
The first vintage we did completely was 16.
Okay.
It was the company was started in 2012. So yes, in fact, it's going to be 10 years soon.
And
but
during
in the very beginning, we were still part-time in Brussels, part-time here. So it's as of 2015 as we started to go deeper in the production.
Okay, and during all this time, have you noticed some change in terms of climate change? Do you feel that the weather is changing, and what do you think is the future for the wine industry and more concretely to Champagne, taking this into account?
It's well, it's a tricky question because 10 years is still a very short period to make big conclusions. For example, in the 80s, in the 70s, we were not here, of course, we were not even born yet, but harvests were done in October. While today, harvest is mostly done in the end of August, end of September. 2021 was an exception. It was the harvest was ready in the end of September, while all those previous years it was really the beginning of September. Big difference already. But you see this huge gap between October and September, but you can see it only throughout nearly 40 years. It's difficult for us to say if there was some major change in the region, but of course you understand that on the whole, on the map of France at least, you can see the difference in the temperature. That is true. Yes.
And there is another point. It's like it can be a huge question because climate is not only like weather, or is it hot or is it cold? It's also a question when cold arrive and when the hot is arriving. For give you an example, this year we nearly have no frost. So we are waiting for having like 3-day -0, and we nearly didn't have it, even during the night. So it's also a question of how the weather is now more and more flat than having like big difference. And the grapes, for example, it's also very difficult to compare. Even if you look at the book and you understand that in the 20s, people are harvesting at that time, people can harvest at another period, but it was not only a question of weather, it was also a question of how many maturity of sugar they wanted to the grapes. So the way of making champagne now, even between me and big houses, it's two different way of making the harvest. So some of them are looking for more tension, less sugar, and we are looking for more powerful energy into the wine, more material into the wine. So making a wine bigger than just straight. So it's also a different date of harvest, depending of which wine you want to produce.
Okay. So you mean that you focus much more in having a good balance between the sugar ripeness, but also the aromas or ripeness, and not only to have a straight acidity that is, let's say, the fashion now in Champagne. And even completely dry.
The difference between grape variety is very strong. A Chardonnay could increase like that, the volume of sugar go like that, and the acidity still nearly the same. It falls a little bit. But if you go for Meunier, the sugar grow in one time, but the acidity level also fall very fast. I mean, if you miss drop faster. I mean, if you miss the fresh between for the harvest, you will have a Meunier with a lot of sugar, but no acidity. It would make a very heavy and strong Meunier that's not digest to drink. So yeah.
It's true because when we talk about harvest and the date we choose, there are very many particularities about the grape varieties Max told. In our case, we work mostly with Meunier. So yes, it's not only about the weather, but it's also about how we want our Meunier to be. So since again we want something ample, we want something wide as wine, but at the same time we need some decent acidity because we want to keep this wine long, because this is wine that spends a lot of time in oak. So acidity is crucial, of course, but it's still dependent on the approach of every winemaker. the style that he's looking for, the dates will change. So, yeah.
Okay. Talking about varieties, I wanted to ask you, why did you decide to bet so strongly for Pinot Meunier, being let's say a variety that has a secondary role in the most of the champagne houses? I think it's something really curious of your winery.
Not for Pinot Meunier, we have to say only Meunier. We cannot use the word Pinot before, so we say Meunier, not Pinot Meunier.
We can't say Pinot Meunier.
Yeah, now it's like officially the officiality of the grape is Meunier.
Okay. Yeah. So the Meunier, sorry.
It's like I want to tell it like that. It's very difficult because with generation here in Champagne, most of the time, some people, some wine producer have decided to change the grape variety of their soil to plant the grape variety that will be more successful to sell. I will say like that.
Okay, I see your point.
When you study the soil here, and we have been very lucky to work studying the soil here with great people, where we selected different kind of plots, and straight away, even with the books and the old books, we understand that it was the best place for Meunier, because we are on the northern part of Champagne. So the Meunier is also a kind of grape that grows slowly. That means that we are protected against the first frost, for example. And we see this year with the frost, some of the people who have Chardonnay in the plot next to us, they are frost. They are frozen. But for us, it was not open yet, so there is no problem. So sorry for the dog.
No worries. I mean, you have less problems with the frost because the Pinot Meunier it's boots later than Chardonnay, for example, there in your region. Okay.
Exactly. We always try to explain that way. The grape variety, of the color of the grape, it's also very matching with the color of the soil. Even if you go in Côte du Rhône or in Burgundy, you can straight away understand in Burgundy which plot is made for Pinot Noir and which plot is made for Chardonnay. Our here, we are most of the time on sandy soil, so the soil is very light. And working with a grape variety that's very strong, it gives a light soil to a strong grapes aroma. It's perfect.
Okay.
And there is another thing to understand. So we're situated in Massif de Saint-Thierry. Massif de Saint-Thierry is the very northern part of Montagne de Reims. So historically, today is the case. It's mostly covered with Pinot Noir, but this particular, let's say, corner of Montagne de Reims, so Massif de Saint-Thierry, it's mostly Meunier. So for us, when we were seeking for the plots that we want to work with, when we were like searching for those vineyards that interest us in our production, we understood that most of these vineyards, they are with Meunier, and there is a very good reason for it, because the soil, because the exposition, because our situation in the very north of the appellation were the reasons why it was Meunier and why it is necessary to keep it this way. That's why, well, we fell into the situation that indeed most of the vineyards that we work with is Meunier. And for us, it was, yes, at some point it was kind of a challenge, because indeed it's not the most famous grape variety, but it felt so natural to work with something that is supposed to be there and wasn't just planted for any other reason. So
okay, now, when you taste the wines, I mean, you understand that they are great champagnes, but commercially it must be tough at the beginning to sell champagnes based on Pinot Meunier, I guess.
Yes and not, because our wine is more appreciated by, I will say, that connoisseur or people that are interested in wine. So for me, the Meunier, it's also a question of which kind of wine. Making wine is always something like a little bit not jealous but selfish, That means you want to produce something that you like. And the wine I'd like to drink, it's strong and heavy white wine. I really don't like having a just drink for drinking something light and with no aroma. So I always want to feel something when I drink something. And the meunier I make, I also try to trick a little bit. I mean, I want to make a meunier that doesn't feel obvious it's a meunier. When you try it, some people can say, oh, maybe it's a Chardonnay, because we're still having some freshness and tension about that meunier. And it's kind of a challenge for us, also very nice to prove to people, okay, meunier alone could be really fresh and really easy to drink. It's not only exotic fruit and very high aroma.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially with the L.P.M, with the 100% Pinot Meunier Blanc de Noir you have. So tell us a little bit about a little summary of your 3 cuvées. What do you want to achieve, or what is the concept of each of one?
So we will majority talk about 2 cuvées, like the Brut we have. The Brut, like we call it Brut because we want to play like the game of the historical name of champagne. So we call it Brut because it's our basic cuvée. And the meaning for us was BSA, meaning Brut sans année, so without any year. It's a blend of different years and it's a blend of different origin. And we want it with a longer spending time in the bottle, but we wanted to keep something more easy to drink, digest, with a lot of still freshness and aroma. But comparing to the L.P.M, we want it to be like more strict wine, more complex wine with more aroma, but not like open aroma. We are looking after amertume. I don't know the name in English.
Kind of bitterness.
Kind of bitterness,
that, but you know, like peppery notes can give you some sensation of
something more complex, like a little bit more spicy, maybe.
Yes, but to be honest, when it comes to spicy, it's not even our decision to make. It's the vineyards that we work with. They really put a lot of spicy notes to most of the wines we make. So it's not even our choice. It is the particularity of the soils that we work. We love it, so it's we only want to underline it.
It's not your intention. It's the expression of the terroir, let's say.
It's always a big fight between winemakers who say, who is the best, the winemaker or the terroir? It's always like art, because they need to be working together. We need a very nice for making a great wine. But it's true, a very great winemaker could make great wine with less good terroir. But at the opposite, a great terroir could be very bad wine with bad winemaker. So it's always finding the balance and try to let each of us, me or the terroir, let them express themselves.
Of course, and it's I think whatever we do, terroir is very important, and it's there. You know, you cannot just kill it, because even if I in a different way, it will always be there. But it's your approach that has to be at some point not obvious, but it has to be on the stage as well, because this is what will make the difference between all the wines on the market, between all the producers. You know, there is one I really appreciate, one phrase. It's an ologist from Burgundy who said it once. He said the wine should have the face of the place where it's from, and it has to have the guts of the person who made it. And for me, to be honest, this is this is the ultimate explanation of what I feel towards wine. It is the approach that, yes, terroir plays an incredibly integral role in all the winemaking, but it is the person behind it who makes a lot of choices, who will either highlight something or hide something from the wine. And it's this beautiful symbiosis of two parts.
Yes, I totally agree. It's all about to find the balance between the terroir, the soil, the environment, and also the way you understand the wine and the wine you like to drink, as you said. You have to do a wine you like to drink. So after all this talk, I can't wait to taste some champagne. Let's taste the L.P.M together. I have it here too. I opened like before to start the interview to taste with the team a little bit. So let's pour some champagne and drink together.
Great idea. So
sorry?
How is the weather?
Here is really good. Here in Barcelona, we are having like spring is beginning just at the end of February. It's really good.
We are talking about climate. We are at the moment a little bit scarce because for the pruning, we always want to wait much as we can that the frost arrive and all the energy into the plants go into the roots for prune them and start again the next year. But today, as I told you, there is no real frost, so no real gap between autumn, winter, and now spring. So we are a bit scared. We are pruning quite faster now because the weather start to renew again. But I'm quite sure that the beginning of March or something like that, we will have some heavy and strong frost and cold weather.
That's very possible.
Okay. And also because when you prune, I mean, the sooner you prune, the sooner the bud burst, and it's more risk of frost on the spring, I guess.
Sooner you prune, less energy you keep into the
plant, into the vine itself.
Okay.
So basically, the moment to prune is when let's call it the juice inside the plant, inside the vine, has gone to the roots, because otherwise you damage the plant, because you imagine you cut a branch while the juice is still up. So let's say it will cry.
We call it the vineyard is crying. So
you have to wait
okay.
when the vine is totally asleep, and it is totally asleep when it is really cold. So all the energy, there is no circulation of juice inside the plant. It all goes down to the root, and then you can cut without any problem.
Okay, when there is no circulation of sap on the vine. Okay.
All producers were quite smart. It's still a peasant job, so we still need to go into the field. We still need to go into the vineyard if it's raining, if it's cold or not, and by generation of making wine everywhere in France, we adapt the way of producing. That means that even now, and we go into the vineyards during the winter because there is no real job into the cellar, because the wine is still very cold and still, so we don't have to move and to shake them. So we have time to prune the vineyard also. So if the thing is changing, if now we have to prune a little bit later every year, that means that we have the wine from the previous harvest that start to need to be blended and work with them. So it's also a question of you asking about the climate change. That's also a very heavy impact about climate change.
Okay, no, that's really interesting.
Cheers, Barcelona.
We were talking when the team of Joy tasting the wine that it has a lot of flowers, and also that the bubbles are really pleasant, and it's more similar to a still wine sometimes than to a champagne in terms of bubbles and the fineness that has the wine.
Well, this is one of the main purposes, to show you that first of all, we're talking about wine and not about champagne. So we'll always about wine and not about bubbles. That's it.
That's
champagne.
Why also we are heavy glasses, like that, because we want to have like
white glasses.
White glasses to have a very large place where the bubble can express themselves and the aroma can be open.
Same for me. I think that we have to treat champagne like a wine, like a normal wine. No, we have to talk about champagne only.
Exactly. I think we'll very, very slowly, but still we move into that direction. By we, I mean the whole region, the whole this whole generation of winemakers who want to put first the fact that champagne is a wine, and we're still moving there, but there's still a lot of work to do, because of course there were, well, basically now centuries behind that when champagne was kind of a mystified, you know, it was just some bubbly stuff. Never really explained that it is a true wine, that it's about terroir, that it's about stuff. They were just talking about acidity, minerality, and bubbles, you know. And now, well, that's a good thing. That's changing, and let's hope that it's going to develop in this way. So, by the way, we just haven't presented the wine that we drink, and this is the L.P.M cuvée. So this is the second one that is in our permanent range. We released this last year for the first time. So we're drinking 100% Meunier, coming, so it's Blanc de Noir, officially indeed, coming from Massif de Saint-Thierry. So mostly grapes that we taste over here, they come from Hermonville and notably from Lieu-dit Marzilly, and some other plots in the Massif.
Yeah, we are tasting 100% Pinot Meunier, and it's amazing. As we said before, you can confuse it with Chardonnay too. It's like,
that was the best compliment my friend who's making wine told me when I arrived to make him taste the wine, and I told him, like, look, that's my little baby. I'm very proud of it. Please tell me what you feel of that. And he said, why? You are working Chardonnay where you are? Yes,
if you do a blind tasting, you perfectly could confuse it with Chardonnay. It's totally true. And you now I have heard that you are doing also still wine in Champagne, like Côte Champenois.
Côte Champenois, yeah.
Côte Champenois. It's like it's still wine, but made in Champagne.
Exactly.
Making wine in Champagne, as I told you, it's making wine, and with that wine you then make champagne. So you produce the bubbles. So it's the third fermentation you do into the bottles. So we have decided last year, 2019, we have decided to produce Coteau. We are producing 2 Coteau, one 100% and one 100% Chardonnay from the same plot. So that plot was divided by the previous owner in 2 different parts. The top of them was in Chardonnay and the bottom of them was in Meunier. But when we have decided to produce Coteau, it was also a little bit tricky, because we have only decided to produce Coteau nearly 2 years after the harvest. Because it was 2 barrels, for telling you the truth, that was like going into the blending, and the barrels were too good for going into the blending, because we could lose that particularity of that barrels, and we'll let them age a little bit longer, thinking that maybe next year we will do something with them especially. And then we have decided by tasting
that yes, the best way was to keep the feel as
like that.
So you were going to blend it to do the champagne, but you wanted to taste it as a still wine, and you decided to leave it apart from the champagne production, from the sparkling wine. I mean, okay.
From the plot that we work with, and we make parceller champagne from. So we make plot champagnes from this plot. We started producing them in 100 Chardonnay in 2018. So yet wines that are ready, they're still in the cellar. And then in 2019, the thing is that plot, as Mark said, is divided by 2 grapes. So it's the same plot, but it's kind of different exposition. So on the top of the slope, and of the slope, it's Meunier and Chardonnay. So they're very different because they have different soil types over there. And initially, when we make when we made plot champagnes in 2018. So we've only worked with the Chardonnay. And it was the first time in 2019 that we decided to take Meunier separately as well. Because before that, Meunier was we used Meunier from that plot into blending. And that particular time, we were blending for our Barcelona champagne. We decided like, no, we don't touch these barrels because there is something going on and we want to keep it longer like this because there is something and it is something very particular, which means you don't want to blend it with other barrels, you know, you want to keep it beauty.
Yeah,
and that's
something
how
it was happening and you wanted to know which one you can discover from this plot. It's normal.
That's why which is a very well, first, working with oak barrels is not very common in the Champagne region, and working long periods with oak barrels, it's even less common in the Champagne region. In our case, like for example, when we talk about L.P.M, the wine has spent 11 months, so nearly 1 year in the oak barrels. You know, it's in Bordeaux.
For the youngest one, so.
I think when you talk about red Spanish wines, it's a normal thing, but in Champagne, it's something which is out of norm, you know. And when we talk about Champagne Noir 2019 that we made, those wines spent 2 years in the barrels. So it's it's a great development. Those are old barrels, so there is no touch of wood. It's only about this little tiny oxidation process that goes through 24 months. And so we kept those wines because, well, in fact, they were best at the still stage. So that's why we decided.
It sounds really good. I can't wait to taste this still wine, and I'm sure we can have some of this wine here in Enjoy One. So all our wine lovers will enjoy it for sure. So guys,
want to drink or you are drinking too?
I want to drink. I want to drink the still wines. I mean, guys, we have no time for more, but honestly, it has been a pleasure to discover all your project, explain it with your view of all these years in Champagne. I'm sure we will meet soon, but in Champagne to be tasting there. So cheers, guys, and see you soon.
Cheers.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.